So good morning. I want to welcome the representatives of the Capital Region, where we are sitting today of the on the Regional Economic Development Council. It's great to see everyone. I know you arranged for the sun and we got rain, but it's okay. We'll be together. We're looking forward to hearing your presentation, and I want to introduce my colleagues on the SIAT, the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team. Depending on where you live in the state, is the SIAT or the SIAT, I don't know. So we have Commissioner Roanne Destito of Office of General Services, who actually runs this building that we're in. You can ask her about Starbucks later. That's my pet peeve. Brian Stratton, Director of Canals in the New York State Canal Corporation, is to my left. Commissioner Roberta Reardon, Department of Labor. Sabrina T., President and CEO of Environmental Facilities Corporation. Ruth Ann Wisnowski's, Commissioner of Homes and Community Renewal. And we're also joined by the Honorable Helene Weinstein, Assemblywoman of District 41 in the New York State Assembly. So we have a full house. We're excited. You know the drill. You have 30 minutes. And then we're going to pepper you with friendly questions.
Okay, great.
You're not so friendly. But
I will start.
But we're
Good
excited.
morning. Good morning.
Thank you.
Welcome. On behalf of the Capital Region Council, we would like to thank you, the team members who are here with us today for this, yes, rainy day, unfortunately. Thank you for the invaluable expertise that you bring to evaluating our proposals. We hope to answer as many of your questions as possible. What we'd like to do is go to our video to start.
Hi, I'm David Allen Miller, conductor of the Albany Symphony. The orchestra and I are extremely grateful to the Capital Region Economic Development Council for their continuing support. In July, they made possible the most innovative project we've ever done, Water Music New York, in which the orchestra traveled from Albany to Buffalo on the Erie Canal, playing concerts to celebrate the canal's bicentennial. My work takes me to communities all around the region, and wherever I go, I'm sensing a new energy and excitement around new ideas and innovation. So let's take a road trip and meet some of the amazing people who live, work, and play across the Capital Region. Let's go fuel up at Stack's Coffee right here in Albany.
Hey, David.
Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
What's going on?
The owner of Stack's Coffee is this amazing guy, Tyler Wrightson. He's really a serial entrepreneur. He's got two amazingly successful businesses right in downtown Albany, Stack's Coffee and a completely unrelated cybersecurity firm.
At LEAT, all we do is basically hack into and break into businesses to identify weaknesses so that they can fix those weaknesses.
Right, but at their invitation, just to be clear.
Oh, of course,
right?
yeah.
All these investments that the council has been making in infrastructure in our communities are really paying off.
Yeah, I completely agree. We are on the cusp of some really, really big changes down here. One of the biggest things is the residential that's come down here. So this is a prime example. You know, we've got 60 units above us, and we've got all these great little projects going on right now. And I think that we have such a great density of unique artists in this area that really tapping into them to help realize what Albany can be, I think that that's going to be a big piece of what's to come.
We're here in the historic and beautiful city of Hudson, New York. Rock star turned culture impresario Melissa Aufdermauer and her husband Tony bought an old abandoned factory here in Hudson and have turned it into an incredible arts and culture magnet called Basilica Hudson.
We were just in love with the space, in love with the idea of having a platform outside of a major city to give emerging arts, culture, a place to experience something new. The region has been expanding and exploding. There's a larger movement of development going on around here. The planning alone is what a little city like Hudson needed to be able to finally step up, see all of its opportunities, and put it together. I can't imagine the 21st century Hudson without this opportunity.
We're here at UAlbany's Health Sciences campus, which is an absolutely amazing facility of researchers, scientists, and entrepreneurs.
Come see the lab.
I'd love to.
So here we are using stem cells and knowledge gained from the research into stem cells to further studies that benefit diseases of the nervous system. The council investment really benefits everybody. It's been transformative When you look at this building, you see it's a specialized research building. This whole campus has benefited, and you see the private-public partnerships and the success of those interactions that are going on locally. And for us, really, it affects our entire quality of life because the council invests in art, it invests in education, in agriculture. It just makes this a great place to live.
We're here in the great city of Troy, New York, a hotbed of arts, culture, innovation, and an awesome farmers market. The activities of the CREDC are really creating an environment in which the innovation economy can flourish.
Here in Troy, in the capital region, creative economy already represents the fourth largest employer. Today, there are over 300 game developers in the greater capital region. We really see the potential to create an industry cluster around games and game-related technologies. The right kind of policy climate, developing the environment, developing urban density, urban renewal, the kind of businesses that make it fun to be in urban locations, these can make a big difference. I think we can make this the top destination on the East Coast for video game development.
Here we are heading into beautiful downtown Glens Falls, the gateway to the Adirondacks. Last year they won the DRI, and they are really at the forefront of downtown revitalization. Lots of exciting, innovative new industries, and we're heading over to Just Water.
The CREDC's involvement here has been huge in both a catalytic and leadership standpoint, but also in an on-the-ground way of facilitating the entire process. As we look around us, there are storefronts being populated, there are buildings that were not here 3 or 4 years ago, and most importantly, there are new people coming. The momentum we have in town, you can see it in new business ideas being germinated, you can see it in the dialogue that happens in the coffee shops. That's what creates a vitality in a place that starts to generate momentum way bigger than anything we could do by ourselves.
We're going to be meeting with the founders of the global lifestyles brand Beekman 1802. In the last year, they've relocated their global corporate headquarters right here to downtown Schenectady in the Electric City Innovation Center.
What drew us to Schenectady was not only the community of creatives that was developing here and people like the Metroplex that was really helping to cultivate those young businesses, but the proximity to New York City, the new train station that's coming in. We moved here really to help us find a talent pool that we could draw on and continue to grow our company.
The public-private partnership is really targeting growing the creative community and the creative population here, because those are the people that have the sparks, those are the entrepreneurs, those are the people in the digital forefront. And by investing the money to be attractive to them, that's how you're going to create the new Schenectady.
I've lived and worked here for more than 25 years, and I've never been more excited about the future of the Capital Region.
The capital region is our home. We have an opportunity, I think all of us, to make a difference and make it great.
And when you feel the support, it really makes it better.
The work the council's doing is laying the foundation to make the greater capital district what I know it can be, a phenomenal place to live, work, and play.
Thank you. So as you saw, the video shows the story of how the council is enhancing the economic development of our wonderful region. It reflects where we are right now, told through the voices of those who have lived through our work and the communities who have benefited from it. Today, we're here to talk about the work our council has done and is doing to fulfill our directive to develop and implement long-term strategic plans for economic growth for our region. We will keep our presentation today targeted to the point. The details are in our 2017 progress report. Today, we're here to talk about outcomes and impacts and how our work is making a difference in our region. I'm Dr. Laura Schweitzer, here from the University at Albany. I'm here representing the university on behalf of the co-chair, Dr. Jim Steller. Dr. Steller has had an obligation on his calendar for at least a year to be away, and he apologizes for that. I did spend many years on the council, was not on it this year, but I have spent quite a few years on the council, and I'm pleased to be here today to present the council's work. Before we start, I'd like to recognize the council members that are not on the panel today. If you'll raise your hand. Thank you, and thank you for all of your hard work. I also send regrets from Council Co-Chair Jim Barba. Jim really wanted to be here today, and he is really sick. He has a very bad cold, and he does send his apologies and wishes he could be here. He's here in spirit. Also joining me today are council members Omar Usami of Aon Nexus Corporation, Todd Erling, the Executive Director of the Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Corporation. As you met, Melissa Aufdemauer, who you met on our video, who's here and has been integral to the development of the Hudson DRI proposal, and Mike Yevely, Regional Director of the Capital Region Empire State Development.
Under the leadership of Governor Cuomo, we have worked to put in place a community-developed, bottom-up approach to set priorities for allocating state resources effectively. Over years of connecting and collaborating with individuals throughout the region, and with the support of our team at Empire State Development, we have fine-tuned our Capital 2020 plan and mapped out a course for our region's economic future. We have followed our plan, adapted it as needed, and have seen positive results that we believe are worthy of continued support. Our strategies have focused on the following: Next Tech, capturing new technologies and new next growth horizons. Gateway, connecting markets and businesses. Talent, building the workforce of today and tomorrow. Liftoff, accelerating ideas, entrepreneurs, and businesses. And Metro, building vibrant cities for businesses and families. The activity of our council is best represented by the people behind the projects themselves. People across our region who are innovators, thinkers, builders, and doers. The people we have worked with are starting or expanding businesses. They are taking risks to benefit our community. As you saw in the video, they are quite impressive. We are proud of their work and proud to support their efforts to create spaces for communities to thrive, develop creative approaches for workforce development, connect our region to our workers in the global economy, and so much more. We're pleased to report that the results of our work are exceedingly positive. We have created jobs. Since 2011, state investments have helped to create, protect, or retain 23,000 jobs in the capital region. Simply put, those investments in our community's ideas and priorities have yielded great impact. We have worked to accelerate our momentum. A top priority is maintaining strong ties with our award recipients to ensure that projects continue to move forward to achieve their goals as well as ours. As of today, 80% of our projects are on track, on schedule, or complete.
Communication has been a fundamental part of our progress. We have facilitated tens of thousands of interactions through meetings, emails, workshops, tours, and much more. Individual meetings, as well as getting to know businesses and communities one-on-one and through our subcommittees. We have worked to identify opportunities and solve problems by connecting the dots between businesses, organizations, institutions of higher education, entrepreneurs, artists, community activists, and many others. We have worked to address the economic challenges and needs of all parts of the capital region, as well as its opportunities. Developing a regionally comprehensive plan has been Governor Cuomo's strong priority. As a council, it has been our guiding principle. The map shows you how we have succeeded.
The council is committed to promoting life science within the region. Research and development is obviously fundamental to businesses across the spectrum. As seen in the video, the council has identified the commercialization of research as the focus of our regional cluster. The sites of some of our projects are shown here. GE Global Research, where discoveries are transformed into products we have all used. The Health Sciences Campus of the University at Albany, the site of the largest aggregation of health sciences entities in the region, including a dozen startups. AMRI, a pharmaceutical company started by local entrepreneurs that just sold for nearly $1 billion. And of course, Regeneron. The Capital Region is the site where discoveries made in New York State are translated into manufactured products used to fight disease. Another of the Council's strong priorities is our opportunity agenda. Our robust workforce development strategy targets those individuals in our region whose employment needs have been the most challenging. In addition to the projects shown on this slide, we have supported projects like Albany Can Code and the Upstate Partnership for Healthcare Pathways to link our distressed communities to opportunities for employment, economic growth, and needed services.
One of the most important activities in support of our Opportunity Agenda is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. The Opportunity Agenda and the DRI align perfectly with our metro strategy of creating in our cities a sense of place that meets the needs of residents, visitors, and a growing innovation economy. Even before Governor Cuomo unveiled the Downtown Revitalization Initiative in April of 2016, the Capital Region Economic Development Council adopted the metro strategy, focused on building vibrant cities for businesses and families. Our 4 downtown catalyst projects include the Albany Surplus Property, Glens Falls Downtown Revitalization, the First Prize Center, and the North Warehouse District. These projects have made tremendous progress over the past year. Their most significant change has come in Glens Falls, winner of the first 2016 DRI funding. Since the award of Glens Falls application, the DRI Advisory Committee has engaged the public to create community-driven projects such as the Downtown South Street Farmers Market, SUNY Adirondack bringing a culinary program directly into downtown to engage students, and in Glens Falls, the last foot broadband idea. The idea that we don't just talk about broadband coming into the city or that last mile, but actually bringing it to the businesses on the blocks that need it. North to south, we look forward to the successes of both our 2016 Glens Falls Downtown Revitalization Initiative and our 2017 Hudson DRI.
This year, the small City of Hudson's Bridge District Plan was chosen as the Capital Region's DRI winner. Nobody knows that was a punk rock band. DRI was a very serious, I laugh every time I say this. Okay, I was proud to be part of this plan because I'm a proud City of Hudson resident and business owner and member of the creative economy. Hudson's DRI plan capitalizes on the district's proximity to the Hudson River and the surrounding natural beauty by restoring public access to the waterfront and by connecting the city with the Empire State Trail and the Hudson River Greenway Water Trail. The plan emphasizes mixed-use, transit-oriented development and integrates the city with the historic Hudson train station, which is the 3rd busiest train station in New York State. Real gateway to the entire capital region. Overall, the DRI will create a safer, more walkable and bikeable city that provides riverfront access for all, and creating a dynamic district designed both to attract more people into the city, but to most of all nurture the Hudson residents by addressing in an innovative way the U.S. Department of Agriculture food desert designation by better connecting the residents of to the Hudson Valley agriculture riches. We are so excited by how the Bridge District Plan will catapult Hudson into a further vibrant development and create opportunity, jobs, and workforce for the future. And beyond Hudson and the DRI lies the thriving creative economy in the capital region. As an active participant in this year's Round 7 process, I gained a deeper understanding of what the Council does, as well as a true appreciation for the deep understanding that New York State and the Council support has for understanding the creative economy. The Council's commitment complements the great work of the Regional Alliance for the Creative Economy, which is another invaluable voice and resource for the creative community, to say nothing of the creative hard workers themselves.
Our agricultural community and food ecosystem is also benefiting from the investments made by the council. A great example is right in Hudson's DRI zone, Hawthorne Valley Farms sauerkraut production facility. A CFA funded last year, Hawthorne Valley is investing in machinery and equipment to expand production and meet exploding demand, both for their own products but also eventually to co-pack for other farmer and other food entrepreneurs' products. Another successful story is Field Goods, a direct-to-consumer distributor that provides weekly deliveries of local produce to more than 4,000 individual subscribing households, which equates to over 5,000 mouths having access to healthy, fresh, New York-grown produce. The business currently purchases from more than 80 regional farms, many of which have increased their production because of the partnership and the market opportunity that Field Goods brings to those farmers. And one more example is Sustainable Aqua Farm in Rensselaer County, which used CFA funding to expand its business in the town of Berlin. This farm is actually producing hydroponic lettuces, and the investment made through the CFA will allow them to begin expansion of infrastructure needed to move towards aquaculture and ultimately the production of caviar.
We're proud to say that we're truly creating a region of choice, whether that be for veterans, for waterfront redevelopment, for downtown revitalization, for workforce initiatives, for healthy living and green infrastructure, for affordable housing, or for even our local governments that are working together. This is evident from the projects, people, innovation, and vibrancy that define the Capital Region. This year in Round 7, we continue this momentum, and we are excited about the opportunities this year funding awards bring to all. The scope of projects in Round 7 reflect the Council's approach. Our priority projects will impact all corners of the region and provide support to all sectors of the economy. Here are just a few examples. The DigiFab shop expansion. This investment will enable Columbia County's largest advanced manufacturer employer to create jobs for individuals with a range of skill sets and expand in new markets. Imagine an organization that's bringing woodwork and metal along with advanced robotics to actually create these fantastic things right in Columbia County. The Capital Roots expansion. This project funding is requested to complete development of the Grow Center's nearly 2-acre campus to meet the need for growing demand, institutional demand for local foods. The Capital Roots expansion. Capital Roots is in a downtown food desert in Troy. Fantastic project providing fresh food to people who don't have access otherwise. And the Schenectady Innovation Project. This project will renovate 66,000 square feet of water-damaged, deteriorated space in downtown Schenectady to create a center for food and beverage production and development, as well as labs for training facilities for culinary education. This round, we're talking about video games, we're talking about beer, we're talking about food. This is really making it more attractive to live here. In addition to the work involved in developing the plan and generating CFA activity, the Council works annually to implement our regional and statewide strategies. This includes intensive public engagement and outreach for not only the Council and CFA activities, but other regional and statewide priorities. Other priorities this year have included implementing round one of the DRI, ensuring a successful DRI Round 2 kickoff, and implementing our URI strategies, including reviewing the first set of applications submitted to the regional office. Clearly, this work will continue through next year.
So in closing, I'd like to thank the council for all they've done to support our region. I'd also like to thank all of the many people who have contributed their ideas to enhancing our work. And I'd like to thank again the members of the SIAT team for your attention, your consideration, and your dedication to improving New York State, as well as the opportunity to share us on a ride down the Hudson River today. On behalf of the panel, I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, lots of information. We're going to start our questioning with Brian Stratton.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Members of the Regional Council presentation team, Dr. Schweitzer, Michael, Omar. Great presentation, wonderful video. Dr. Schweitzer, it's great to see you again. I had the opportunity of working with you for several years while I was mayor and you were president of Union Graduate College, and you've brought that same energy to this presentation today.
Thank you.
I was very happy to see in the video David Allen Miller traveling around the region just as he traveled along the Erie Canal this summer as part of our bicentennial celebration. David and the Albany Symphony Orchestra played on barge in 7 of our canal communities, from Albany to almost Buffalo Lockport, and it was a great way to bring attention to this fabulous canal system. As we've traveled along the SIAT, and as the SIAT has traveled, we've seen all of the DRI communities, and I want to congratulate Hudson on joining those leagues. It's a great opportunity, and I've remarked to my colleagues that it seems that many of the DRI communities have one thing in common, and that they are located along the canal system, which is a great asset. Hudson is not on the canal, but as we all know, the Hudson River was the gateway to the Erie Canal, so that counts, I think, and I think that's a strong thing. One of the things that we are doing in the canal as we continue to observe the bicentennial is to hold regional forums, and our next forum will be in the Mohawk Valley and in Utica, where we will be focusing on strengths of the canal region, and we are going to be looking at the craft brewing industry, not only in Utica and in the Mohawk Valley, but across the state too. And that brings me to my question. The Capital Region REDC is supporting several projects that would continue the growth of craft brewing here. And those include Grain Hum in Moreau and the OPS microbrewery in Warren County. Can you describe the importance of craft brewing to the region as part of your regional plan?
Sure.
And I think Todd will probably get that question.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate that one. And I think what's important about the 2 projects that you mentioned and the role they play in our CFA process, as well as the strategic plan and regional council, also reflects in the role and the potential that they have for beyond our region. So the Grain Hub in particular, let's just focus on that. You know, part of the conversation that we've been facilitating are that the expansion in the industry, the attention, the support, and the capital that's been provided, not only brewing, but distilling, cider, wineries, has created not only huge market opportunity, but opportunity for supply chain and for processing. And the Grain Hub shows that someone is stepping up, part of a very traditional, multi-generational farming family, and understanding how to transition into opportunities that did not exist prior to the expansion of the craft beverage industry and the support and assistance that the state has provided for it. So not only will that provide storage and processing for a very well-established multi-generational farm, it actually goes well beyond that to providing processing and storage for farms, not only in the capital region, but the North Country, the Mohawk Valley, and even, I dare say, Vermont and Massachusetts. But then on the flip side, it provides materials. It provides ingredients that are necessary and required to keep our licensing and our craft beverage industry rolling forward as New York sourced product and New York sourced ingredients. On the flip side, you then have an individual brewery that's taking on the hops growing and production right on the site. So you see the dynamic between one project that is not only going to provide many breweries and distilleries, and even actually bakeries and other grain uses, but then you have an individual brewery that's going to be tapping into that because they can't grow and produce everything on their site, but what they can produce on their site as far as hops and individual production is illustrated in that brewery. So it's a great dynamic. We have some opportunity for growth of our farms in our region, but then we also have the opportunity to be supplying ingredients to other craft beverage and individual sourcing projects outside of our region.
Right. Now, a brewery in Chestertown, New York, in Warren County. This started as a project that they came a year ago to economic development to us and sat down with us and talked about wanting to do a restaurant. And we said, we don't fund restaurants. Let's think outside the box and let's talk about your community and what the needs are there. And the needs really are economic vibrancy through business. How do we create more jobs? How are you going to create more opportunity for yourselves? And that came with a hops farm, a small hops farm, and they had a trial going on with 2 acres that they're expanding. And then came to a great conversation on how about you brewing fantastic beer up here in Chestertown in the middle. I mean, this is the northernmost project we've ever talked about as a council. We sat down with the owners and said, this is the best way for you to approach us through communication and how we can develop a really strong project for you. And like I said, the Capital Region really does love beer. We've had a lot of good beer projects. And as,
Mark, that brewery is Exit 27 off the Northway. It is. Not that I drink beer, but what's the name of it again?
it's OPS Brewery is what the brand is going to be called, but it's a restaurant up, it's a bar and restaurant up in Chestertown.
Very good.
And they've been open for a couple of years now.
I've been there.
Great group of guys, great group of guys.
Good. Thank you.
We are going to go to Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you very much. This was a terrific presentation. It's very exciting to hear all of the presentations. You've done a wonderful job. That was an excellent video, by the way. Videos
You
are
would know.
really well done. Of course, I'm going to ask you about workforce development. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on the work that you've done. It's very impressive, the level of collaboration that's obvious in the workforce development portion of your report. You've managed to do something that's not easy. You've put all the players in the same room and told them to have the same conversation. And it obviously is bearing fruit. So thank you for doing that. I want to ask, so there's some very exciting programs here, and the training initiatives are really incredible, you know, taking the kinds of skill sets that individual creators need and then matching them up and making sure they get trained. A lot of it is at the high end of education. What can we expect for people at the lower end in poverty with fewer resources? Often what happens is that those people, while there's a training program, is there a remedial aspect to it so that they can be prepared to go into those programs? Because I hear around the state, math, reading comprehension. And I would hate to see this great development of pipeline talent, but leaving the lower end of that spectrum out of ability to get into it. So are there remedial plans?
So I'd like to first start by thanking you for acknowledging what we've done here in the Capital Region. I think one of the things that we've done intentionally is through all of the projects, try to work in a workforce development component to it. One of the things that I really respect the council for this year and our local chamber was to do an analysis of exactly what kinds of programs are needed in the Capital Region. And in fact, on page 26, when you have an opportunity later to look at our report, you'll see the results of a survey of employers in the region and what kinds of workforce that they need. And on that survey, you'll see that there's one panel for top skills, one for entry-level skills, and one for mid-level skills. On the entry-level skills, I think that is where your question is really aimed. And we have worked hard here in the Capital Region, especially through both BOCES and our community college system, to really provide the kind of remedial education that you're talking about, and taking it a step further, you know, really making sure that people leave those programs with jobs. A great example is at Schenectady Community College, where last year we funded a health care navigator program where we took unemployed individuals, gave them basic remedial skills, trained them, and now they're working with Ellis Hospital and others in Schenectady. These are people who were hard to employ prior to that time, and they're really making an impact on the healthcare of the region. There are so many examples. Two of our priority projects are really aimed at that level. One is the Advanced Manufacturing Training Program with BOCES, which has been very welcome when we saw that proposal, and the Welding and Metal Fabrication Program as well, with the Hudson Valley Community College and others here in the region. But I think there's a general recognition that as part, so much of the money here in these programs is for capital, that in order to address workforce needs, we have to be more creative about weaving these things in. And I think that I wasn't on the council this year, so I can't claim any credit, but I give the council a lot of kudos for what they were able to do. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. It's very impactful. I know that when we try to lure new manufacturers and creators to New York State, one of the first things they ask is, what's the talent of your workforce? So thank you for really thinking that through.
Sure. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. First of all, I want to thank you for a great video and for traveling us through the region. And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that I love seeing our buildings and the Capitol on your video and certainly on your banner. I will say that TripAdvisor says that the Capitol Tour is the #1 tour attracting people to the Capitol District. So, and for your information, we've opened up Saturdays now, pretty much every Saturday, and we've opened up the State Education Building for tours also with the commissioner there too. So,
Largest colonnade in the country, right?
Excuse me?
Largest colonnade
yes,
in the country?
yes.
Yeah.
So, and they have some beautiful
It's a beautiful
tapestries,
building.
and it's a beautiful building in there. So, that's the public service announcement. But anyway, for my staff that works so hard on the Capitol tours and everything. But OGS also certifies the service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. And here in the Capitol District, you are probably one of the largest homes for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses and also MWBE. And as an agency and as part of state government, we work with a lot of the businesses. And I just wondered if you played a role, because I think the unemployment rate is the lowest for veterans, especially disabled veterans in the state. What is your message, and how do you work with the veterans and the MWBEs to integrate them into your CFA projects and the projects that you fund?
Commissioner, thank you for the question.
Yep.
Because the Capital Region is fourth in the amount of service-disabled veterans we have in the state. That's behind New York City, Long Island, Buffalo, and then Albany. So we take our veterans seriously, in the fact that we, in June, had the MWB and veteran-owned service-disabled business conference here, where we had the MWB conferences, and we
Right.
actually met with
The VetCon.
We met
Right.
with VetCon as well. So
Right.
in VetCon, the VetCon Alliance, we've got education, we've got companies involved, we've got the program specialists coming in from both employer support for National Guard, the Association of the United States Army. We've got all of the veteran-owned groups coming together at VetCon, which we're doing again in November of this year. Obviously, there's a lot of engagement going on between our educational institutions to make sure that they have the skills when they come home, and they have the skills to not just connect on an education level, but also connect through Innovate 518 and talk to our hubs themselves. Each of the innovation hotspot participants are actually geared towards veterans as well. So that's how we're servicing people who are actually higher on the spectrum. But this year, we have a project, the Soldier On Project, that's really talking about the people who are coming home and need help. How do we help them with substance abuse? How do we help them with recovering from PTSD? How do we get them engaged with services and get those services out to programs that allow them to become engaged in the community? So it's not just the business owners who I know are stellar in everything they do, but those guys, my friends, they want to hire vets as well.
Correct.
So hiring the vets, we need to make sure that, one, the opportunities are there, and two, that if the opportunities are there, that we can fill those opportunities with people who have the skill sets and are ready to work. And being the fourth largest region in the state, anything behind New York and Long Island is going to be massive. So we're taking it very seriously, and we're concentrating on how to help them from both sides, from projects like Soldier On to VetCon and connecting our veterans with businesses in our community. So we're hitting it on many different levels, and you see this as not a concentrated approach. You're seeing this as a distributed approach for a reason. not everyone's going to have the same needs, and not everyone's going to have the same goals. One of the really neat projects, and I'm going to let Todd talk about it, is going to be the farming program that we've got with our soldiers as well.
Heroic farms, right? So I think that just brings a full picture that much of this is wraparound in the capital region. While we do have some finite, targeted, and discrete services, we also have a mentality and kind of a holistic approach to things. So Hawthorne Valley, who I mentioned with the sauerkraut processing facility, actually is a fiscal sponsor and works with some of the USDA-funded Veteran and Beginning Farmers programs and Cornell Cooperative Extension to put some host agreements in place for heroic farms and efforts to support veterans entering into agriculture or veterans returning to agriculture that are coming back as second and third generation farmers. And on the flip side, Field Goods, another example of a project that we talked about. That's actually a 6-year-old now woman-owned business. And she's really embraced the idea of not only being a woman-owned business, but understanding what those employment opportunities are in her community. She partners with the ARC and has actually received some awards and recognition for creating employment and education programs for ARC individuals and people in the community that have some other challenges for employment in other places. So I look at it in two ways. We have the discrete programs that are high priority, but then we also build this into a culture of entrepreneurship. And we have these community partners that focus in other specialty areas, but understand that veterans, women-owned, minority-owned, challenged individual employments are all of our responsibilities as entrepreneurs.
And the Small Business Administration awarded $180,000 to the Watervliet Arsenal to actually develop a full veteran program.
Right.
That veteran program is yielding results because they're talking about entrepreneurs starting their businesses and their startups right there at the Arsenal. So this is a friendly location. They know it inside and out. They're able to go there and actually attend programs to actually get them involved. As far as women-owned businesses and MBE business, minority business and entities in the state, another complete, I feel, untouched piece for economic development when we talk about how to engage them. So when you talk about CEG and the different innovation hotspots, hubs that we've got throughout our regions, they're all talking to these great business owners. We're coming together with ideas, but they don't have the business support aspects. So they're working with Center of Gravity. They're working with the Electric City Innovation Center. They're working with places like the Troy Innovation Garage. These are ideas that are coming together, where groups are coming together and actually taking their makerspace idea for the economy. So vets, MBEs, WBEs, and kids, to tell you the truth. There are a lot of high school kids that are really interested in taking their ideas because they're imagining, when I'm 30, I'm going to be retired. So I like it when my daughter tells me that. She's 12.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to answer one part of your question about what we've done to actually make sure we offer those opportunities to service disabled veterans and women minority-owned businesses. So we specifically, as a council, hold a workshop to explain. We actually work with your staff who provide us with the lists. We advertise to that list to make sure that we hold a workshop specific about the vending, not only the vending opportunities, we actually team it up with our workshop so that they can attend afterwards to find out that there's applications, that their business is growing and they can qualify, that there's those opportunities
Great.
as well.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much. I guess I'll just echo what everyone said so far. Great presentation. Thank you very much for being here. So you've talked a lot about a lot of interesting things, I think, with all the questions that we've had. So we always learn so much from each of them. So what is the one strategy or approach that, when you came in today, you said, God, I wish they would ask us about that so we could talk more about it because we're so limited in the time that we have to present. And can you tell us about that?
That's a tough question.
You didn't script that one.
That's a new one.
That the creatives are the answer, maybe?
Yeah.
And the farms, and the actual resources of the hardworking people. And that's.
I'll riff on that a little bit because I think that you saw between Glens Falls and Hudson some common denominators and strengths. And one of the themes that came through in our video was really the incorporation of the creative economy on many scales and through different communities and populations. And when you see that entrepreneur innovation culture that makers and creative bring, it lends itself to much more traditional components of our commodity, like healthcare, insurance, very traditional larger scale manufacturing and distribution. So I think that creative economy component is something that we really bring to the table in a way that it's become very intuitive. And it takes someone like Melissa and some of our individuals sometimes to remind us that there's a specific component here that you guys are sometimes jaded on, that we need to actually bring back to the front.
Well, there's so much risk being taken by individuals, and whether it's a farmer or a creative. And for me, just speaking personally, and why I'm here is I was very, very impressed by when I just went innocently as an individual who's taking risk, who sees the other people taking risk, that I went to try to get advice of how can I. Because a lot of, I mean, even Omar, when he came to visit our projects, he was surprised by how much risk we're taking. I mean, not sane people will do what we're doing. As sane people will not be farmers either. And no, seriously. So all of that risk, if we feel like, and so far I have been very blown away by, because we need leadership, I don't know what we're eligible for. I need a lot of guidance, and I also need a lot of security that I don't instinctively create. And if I have people actually listening and recognizing and saying and realizing that we're doing something that other people are not doing, and that we need to be supported in a different kind of way than, say, a game developer who might already be established, et cetera. Like, I just know from being on the ground, and back to the Department of Labor question too, is DigiFab, our neighbor. That's an example which they're our neighbor, and we get to know them. We host their holiday party. We're really excited to see that they're hiring our friends who have not graduated from college. We know that if they get that big machine is going to, they'll train the higher up ones and then open up the lower manufacturing job there. And so I get excited when I know that these people at this table have recognized that DigiFab and Basilica Hudson, two completely different things and both very risky and innovative, are on the same playing field. And I mean, I guess that's the only thing I can speak to on the boat later, is how exciting the extremes and differences and the risk, and that this is where we can find support. And I trust so far, and the DRI obviously gives us like so much empowerment for Hudson, and I just hope that we can be a beacon of light, of showing all these mixed risks and problems and challenges wrapped around within a couple of incredible programs that I think will, I'm proud to say that in 5 years, I think Hudson will be a perfect example of what all of this nurtured can look like in the rest of the country, let alone New York State.
Exactly. Now,
Drop the mic.
But the point being, the capital region creates, right? This round, we're not talking about what ifs. We're not talking about build it and they will come. We're not talking about ideas. We're talking about people who have projects. So we're actually creating things. From north to south, one of the things that we talked about was how different our region is. So when we did our SWOT analysis, one of our weaknesses was we're disjointed. And visiting all these different communities, I said, that's fantastic. We all have a taste for the capital region, but up north in Warren County and Washington County, they associate more with the Adirondacks and the northernmost tip of New York. So visiting Hudson, you get a completely different feel for what the capital region can be, because it's reflecting more of New York City. And we're embracing that and tying it together. So that stitching that we're doing, and as Melissa said, we're connecting the dots. Well, I think you alluded to the idea that we're taking completely unrelated items and connecting the dots and learning from those experiences. So when you think about Glens Falls and you think about Hudson, you think of everything in between. Our first couple rounds, all we talked about was Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga. And now you're seeing the DRI be focused on these complete north to south opposites for us, right? And we're finding out that they're not opposites, they're actually very similar. And we're tying everything together and stitching it to create things. I think that's something that we've found with this round that's different than every other round that we've had. We're actually concentrating on the people that create things.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. I am, I think, newest of this group to state government into this process, so I think you all, it's really interesting to be part of this and inspiring for sure to hear about all the connections that you make So as the housing commissioner, always want to ask a housing question. So I have a little bit of a rambling, partial informational and partial sort of two-prong question for you.
Perfect.
So the governor launched a big housing plan last year. We're all over the state doing new construction, preservation, and home ownership. One of the things we recently started talking about is, and launched, was a mortgage product to retain recent grads in upstate cities. And so I wonder if you could talk sort of in two parts, one about sort of how you retained recent grads, and also just sort of generally, if you will, about sort of the housing challenges that you see on the homeownership front, on the rental front, on the low-income front, on the workforce housing, just sort of generally as all this growth is happening, where you see sort of the challenges in that.
I'm not sure I can speak to housing, but I will talk about retaining recent grads.
Great.
Because we have so many, so we now count 31 higher educational institutions in the capital region, and have a tremendous, we are an attractant, and we would like to retain that talent here in the capital region. I think when we did our Upstate Revitalization Initiative, one of the true strengths that emerged was the number of graduates that we have here in the region. Clearly, from a workforce standpoint, that has been a huge advantage for us. For example, Taconic Industries just relocated their corporate headquarters here because of the workforce that's here in the region. We, during the time that we put the URI together, we really did focus on initiatives that would have retained those young people here in the region. And a lot of what we've done in terms of entertainment, the restaurants, other things that attract and retain young people has been a real focus, I think, of the council. I can't really speak to housing as well. Thank you.
So in a previous life, I actually was a project director for housing and resources at Columbia County. And I think the approach that I learned 20 years ago is actually very appropriate for some of the things we're starting to see now come to fruition in the capital region. And it's a balance between that opportunity of revitalizing urban areas. We have some significant housing stock available for rehabilitation, as well as, you know, that double-edged sword of gentrification that can come with that. And so some of the approach that we took on in Hudson and Columbia County and Philmont, you know, was really a multi-prong. Adaptive reuse of existing buildings to have mixed-use potential so that you do have a vibrant streetscape, but still residential opportunities where that vibrant streetscape is, and you saw some of that in our video. Making sure that different components and different members of our economy and our communities have the support necessary as appropriate relative to their position. So first-time homeowner programs and those opportunities of teaching populations the skill set necessary, not only economically through savings programs and match programs and understanding what it takes, but also responsibility as a steward, not only of a building, but a community and a neighborhood and a street. And so we balanced some of that when I was working with Housing Resources on, yes, you have a home buyer match program for savings, but you also go through a program where you teach someone, you know, the difference between calling a plumber yourself as a homeowner and calling your landlord, right? And understanding that those are things that you start building in, not only as do-it-yourself fix-it, but also the toolboxes that you have financially and skill set wise. And then the last thing I would just throw out there is the key to home ownership is a vibrant economy, jobs, and opportunities for our population. And so again, I'm not trying to defer, but I think that holistic wraparound approach that we take in many of our other distinct focuses like workforce, education, minority and veteran and women-owned business entrepreneurship applies to home ownership as well. And that when you have entrepreneurs like Melissa making not only investments in the actual basilica as a business, but also living in that community and then having those individuals working for you living in that community. An example that came up recently in my home community of Hudson and Columbia County was the National Young Farmers Coalition. We all understand what young farmers are up against, obtaining land, student loan forgiveness, those things. But we also have to recognize that the individuals supporting them in the National Young Farmers Coalition have an office in Hudson on our seeking to live in Hudson. They're investing in that.
I'd like to just speak to it quickly on two-prong twos in the DRI. There's a huge spot in our Bridge District at the CAS building, which will be the hub of the future economy and possible residential possibility for more affordable. And that ties into not only because it's the neighboring project to our, one that I live and work in, but people who we employ, we cannot afford to live in Hudson. Hudson has a massive housing problem, but I will say that we are either benefiting from or helping out Dutchess County in that we employ Bard College. I'd say 75% of our employees are Bard College graduates, and they are not moving to Rhinebeck. They are not moving to Brooklyn because they're moving to Hudson. And I struggle regularly to find them a place to live and a way for them to justify staying. My husband's a Bard graduate, and most of they've all moved back. Even if they tried going, they come back to Hudson. We got there when we could afford a home, but I really regularly help, and if I knew about that program, I would be helping these young people figure out how they can buy, not in Hudson because you can't really afford, but a little farmhouse outside of, or when these housing opportunities come, and there is a lot of buildable land in Hudson, that these incredible affordable places will be filled quickly, and it's very exciting to know that that's on the agenda because Hudson needs it a lot, and we need college graduates to move to Hudson as well.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner, I just want to add to it, we work very closely with your staff. They are integrally involved, of course, in the DRIs and everything we do. We'll see a number of projects today that we've worked cohesively together on as a council through other funding sources as well as HCR funding. On the affordable side, on the non-affordable side, retaining talent, when you listen to primarily the video game companies and some of the software developers, you really realize that it's about creating more opportunities for two things. Placemaking, we've all heard about that. Placemaking, very important, whether it's an affordable housing project, market rate, is a big part of what we can make our investments in and make a difference. And then on the affordable side, it's really working through creating, a mix of spaces that are interlinked together, so that's a mixed income neighborhood. And the retention of talent, creating those opportunities for new companies to come in, and that's what the video game companies are actually focused on. They want to have more video game companies so that they can actually not only retain the talent, but attract talent from elsewhere. They're competing for talent in Silicon Valley and New York City and areas that are really much different than the capital region, so we have to make it unique and interesting for them.
Thank you. Well, I actually may be the newest member of of this group, so somewhat of a observing opportunity for me. But as a 35-plus, I guess, year observer of coming to Albany and seeing sort of the changes from downtown Albany, just really surrounding Empire Plaza, Troy and Schenectady areas, I've certainly seen some of the changes, and seeing the video really brought even some issues that, and some changes I wasn't even aware of years back. When I was asked what the best restaurant in Albany, I would say it's in Troy, because it was, and that certainly has changed over the years, and there's been tremendous developments. You know, sometimes as a outside observer over the years, you can really see the changes more than someone actually living in the community. And I know that you spoke about the jobs that have been retained and or created as a result of some of the economic activity over these past years. I was just wondering the impact on the community as a whole, the economic impact, what it's done to the city's financial bases there. And I was thinking also about the housing question. Todd, I think you mentioned about the issue of gentrification, which, you know, coming from downstate and my part of Brooklyn isn't really affected. You know, I say I'm from Brooklyn, people think that I live in a really cool spot, but they don't really. I live by the water in Sheepshead Bay. But I've just seen what's happened to so many of the residents of the city, and particularly in Brooklyn, where as communities develop and we have entertainment and new businesses, all of a sudden longtime residents are sort of are forced out of the communities and have trouble being able to stay in the neighborhood, and sort of that balance of certainly we want to provide economic opportunities for people, but we also don't want to push people out of their neighborhoods.
It's an extremely difficult balancing act. And the balancing act I'll describe first by talking about some data. And you may have heard me talk about how different the capital region is. But when we looked at our opportunity agenda zones, we had a strong discussion on what the metrics were for the capital region. And we found that for income level, education level, we had a 5 standard deviation difference between our best performing district and our worst performing district. Between Saratoga Springs, where we have multi-million-dollar houses next to other multi-million-dollar houses and great opportunity and great economic development, to our inner cities in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, and we had one specific example in Troy where that was 5 standard deviations worse off as a community. And any math or statistician out there will say, oh my gosh, how do you balance those two things together? Carefully, because we don't want to push people out of these neighborhoods, but we want to develop them responsibly. And that's why when Todd was talking about the programs that we're working with, whether it be community development block grants with economic development, whether it be with the individual housing authorities in each of the communities, whether it be the developers themselves, and working with them to actually price point these items in the right way. Hudson is a unique example for the capital region where everything has been priced out in an inner city. And as I walked those streets, I was confused. I asked Mike and I asked Todd. I was honestly confused because I wondered why people would be investing so much money in some of these buildings when I know just a couple miles away there's a lot of opportunity for cheaper investments, is the best way for me to put it. So I'm trying to compare Glens Falls and Schuylerville and all these other places that are coming up, but they don't have that same push that we have down in Hudson that has attracting that New York City quality to the capital region and pricing people out through gentrification, whether that be in a community that would welcome it or let's say a community that doesn't welcome it. Because in Hudson, it is really the haves, have-nots, and then 5 other groups that are all at the table to discuss these things. And one thing that we did not do in the Glens Falls DRI, we worked with our committee for Glens Falls to actually work on projects, and it was mostly business owners and mostly political leaders. In Hudson, we've shifted because the requirements have shifted. In Hudson, there's community activists, there are people that are actually representing the underserved and underrepresented people in that community to talk about how economic development will not overwrite their culture, overwrite their heritage, and push out the people who cannot afford to be part of that vibrancy. So combining that, and I'm going to go back to Todd's statement that it's a holistic approach to some of these things, because if we don't have the jobs and don't have the education programs and don't have the pieces for a creative economy to actually create jobs that people will understand and actually get things going, we won't have the ability to keep them in our communities. So it's not just one side of it. It's got to be all sides of it.
I'm going to say what Omar said a little bit differently. I think we can do both. I really think we can do both, and I think the council is focused on doing both.
Absolutely.
Both the economic development and the opportunity agenda. I think we take our opportunity agenda very seriously. And when projects not only create opportunities for economic development, but also address the needs of some of our poorest neighborhoods, that's when they really receive the highest scores. So in some way, I don't see them as mutually exclusive. I see them as working together.
I think if I talked to almost all of the 6,700 people who live in Hudson, and they would say he's the guy that says balance every time we talk. So that is what we're trying to do, is balance, and that is a great example. The Hudson example, to answer your question, is we're facing it there, and we're gonna, it's gonna be an experiment in motion. So stay tuned.
I'll just use one other example that I think is really innovative. The Breathing Lights program that occurred in the capital region. It was actually very traditional arts-oriented community members in the creative economy taking an installation project, a physical art project, and putting it in some of the toughest neighborhoods with the most blight and hardest conditions to survive, literally. And actually creating buildings that lit up at night that then we drew visitors to, and also raised awareness of the community members there currently. And so some innovative projects like that, which sounds, a bit high-minded, actually was meant to engage and have conversation between these various groups in the same community, but at the same time bringing in non-threatening new members to really appreciate what that building represented and the neighborhood is going through.
So we're out of time, but we'll have time this afternoon to ask more questions. I want to thank you. It sounds like you have all the components for success, the breweries.
Farmers.
At the top of the list, farmers, the art. So I look forward, to seeing the stuff at, kind of live this afternoon. And I thank you for your presentation and all of you for your time.
Thank you.